Hi everyone, I'm Martha. This is a video for Thought Bubble Digital Comic Con. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm talking to the amazing artist Sanford Greene, who you will know from things like Power Man and Iron Fist with David F. Walker. He has done Black Panther and Luke Cage covers, and most recently Bitter Root, which is an incredible saga, again with David F. Walker and Chuck Brown. And it has just won Best Continuing Series at the Eisners. So congratulations, Sanford, on that, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
No problem. My first question to you is, how did your love of comics begin?
How did my love of comics begin? This story, our editor, Shelley Bond, she loves the story. Whenever I share it, it's about...
You know Shelley.
Yeah, she's awesome. When I was a kid, roughly around 8, 9 years old, my mom would take me to the local... We have here this retail store. At the time, it was known as Kmart. And Kmart had these awesome displays called spinner racks. First time I've ever seen anything like that. I was a lover of cartoons, obviously, most kids, every kid. At that time, Saturday morning cartoons was the gateway to comics. Even when I didn't have a full grasp of the comic medium, I loved the cartoons. So when my mom took me to this Kmart, I noticed this spinner rack from a ways off, and I saw some images, even from that distance, that looked similar to the things that I saw on the cartoons: Superman, Spider-Man, Batman, those characters. I noticed the spinner rack had these books with these characters on them, and I'm absolutely enamored by this. And I go to the spinner rack, and I just stand there, and I'm just staring at this thing, and I'm touching the spinner rack, and I'm spinning it, and I'm just amazed by this. And so my mom, this is during a time where you could leave your kids in a department store in one place, the toy department, things of that nature, and come back after shopping, and they're still there safely. And so my mom left me there, and I stood there for the entire time, just looking through the books, or trying to. This is during a time where the comics were in the 3-packs, to where you can do 2 or 3 comics in one pack. So I'm trying to peek through each each of those packages to see what's in it. And so my mom comes back, and she notices I'm still there, just fixated on these books. And she says to me, "You look like you're pretty interested in this stuff." And she said, "Okay, and if you're interested, then I'll buy you one." And she didn't know where she started. She started pretty much my whole addiction at that moment. So she bought me my first set of comics. As a matter of fact, I have them somewhere up here on this display. If I can find them before we're done, I'll show you a few of them. I had to rebuy them, I should say. And that's pretty much where it all began. So I got the books, and I would go home, and I'm tearing through these books. And now, when I used to, if I could kind of digress, when I was looking at cartoons, I would try to draw the cartoons, but of course it was so hard because you're talking about moving parts, moving pictures. And now I got these books, still pictures. So now everything that I was trying to do, I can actually do now. And it just opened the floodgates for me. So now the drawing component started when I had those comics. I would copy every day. I'm in my room just drawing from those books. And pretty much just took off from that point.
Amazing. Were there any characters that you particularly saw yourself in at that point, or is that, I've heard of people talk about that might be why they start creating, because they want to start seeing themselves in things?
Another story that Shelley Bond loves me to tell. So when I was collecting these comics, or if you will, just buying them at random, because I didn't understand collecting, but I knew that they were out there. Now that I know, I want my mom to take me to the store every day if possible. But whenever we would go, I would get a set of comics, and I got this holiday special, Marvel holiday special, and there was an ad that showed all these Marvel heroes. And at the time, I'm starting to learn the heroes. Of course, I knew who Spider-Man and the Hulk were, but now I'm learning about Iron Man and Human Torch and the Thing and characters like that. So there was this holiday ad that showed this wreath that had these different Marvel heroes on the actual wreath, the headshots of all these Marvel characters. Yeah. So I'm going through all of these headshots, and I'm naming each character, and then I get to this one character who I've never seen before. And this character was a brown man with a tiara. And I'm like, who is this? And for the first time in my little brain, I'm putting together this thing of, wait a minute, okay, the Hulk, he's, one particular, race, and Spider-Man and Captain America, he's the one in my mind. As I look back at it and think about it, he was the one I gravitated towards because he was brown. He wasn't any other, he wasn't like the other characters. And what made it even more fascinating was I didn't know his name. Now I'm on a quest. I'm now on a mission to find out who is this character. Obviously, he's got to be important because he's on the reach with all these other big name characters. Fast forward, I find out his name is Power Man, and now I'm on a witch hunt, search, or whatever you want to call it, for books that have him in it. And at the time, he wasn't as prevalent, or at least where I lived, you didn't get the comics that had some of these what we call C, B rated characters. You had your Spider-Mans, you had your Batman, but you wouldn't get a book called Power Man and Iron Fist. So long story short, didn't get a lot of comics with him in around that time, but I definitely became fascinated with him. So I would draw him all the time. I got this book. Most of your audience would have heard of it by this time. It's called How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way. And I'm thumbing through that. That was probably my most prized possession out of everything, because now it's teaching me how to draw all this stuff that I thought was so fascinating. And in that book, there he is again. He's in this book. So now I got my little paper and I'm trying to trace the character and learn how to draw him, because again, this character that I didn't have a whole lot of comics about, didn't really, understand or knew his name until like maybe a year later. And yet this is my favorite character. It was all because I saw him and he was a brown man. And I started to connect with the skin color.
Brilliant. Well, I mean, obviously that explains a bit about how you started drawing, just kind of copying and learning, and then how did things actually kick off for you? When did you get your first jobs?
Oh man, well, fast forward from my childhood, I got out of college and I went to graphic design for a few years, and my off time, I would go and do these conventions, comic conventions. Once I discovered those, and I would take my portfolio to the Wizard World Chicago, which is, at that time, it was the big one. It was the most popular one. And I would show my work. And I think I got my first project with this small publisher doing this series called Black Arrow.
Yeah.
Not to get it confused with Green Arrow. Just called Black Arrow. You know, very on the nose character. I mean, he's a black character, just like Green and Arrow, like Green Arrow. So, but hey, it was a start. I got my start there, and I just kind of kept showing my portfolio and started showing, going to more conventions. And I met somewhere about 2 years, 3 years after that, I met a few editors over at Dark Horse, and they saw the potential of my work. So I got some work doing Planet of the Apes, when the Tim Burton film that no one cares about. I did,
Yeah.
I did I did one of the adaptations of that. That was an interesting experience, and yeah, it just kind of kept growing. And from that point, got more opportunities. DC came along, and I got my first gig there. That one was very sobering though, because I got the job drawing Superman. That was my first job at DC, and it was almost my last job in general, because I blew the deadlines. Didn't understand the whole deadline process, especially I understood the deadline process, but not with a company like DC.
Sure.
I didn't understand that, okay, if the book is being, if the book is on the shelves January 30th, that doesn't mean you turn in your work January 29th, if that makes sense. It's like, no one trained me to truly understand that, because again, I've got published work, but it was very, the deadlines were very loose. It was finish it, whenever you can, that kind of thing. So yeah, no real training and understanding of that. And yeah, I really kind of fell on my face with that one. But the thing that really saved me was, I think editors always say you got to have, publishers, editors, professionals, they all say, editors have 3 bullets. You got to be very good, you got to be on time, and you have to have a great, work ethic, personality kind of thing. They're going to use 2 of those bullets. You just don't want them to use 3. And I was lucky enough that they didn't use 3.
Wow.
And so I ended up, salvaging my career. But, from that point, it started growing. I got more work, understood to meet my deadlines, and, just kind of grew from there.
And then, so when did you start working with David, with Power Man and Iron Fist? When was that?
That was definitely well into my career.
Yeah.
We're talking about maybe 5-6 years later, 7 years later. I'd already done work with Marvel and DC for, that time period. Did some independent stuff, some Dark Horse stuff. And Marvel approached me about doing some more stuff and possibly doing a series. Axel Alonso was the editor at that time, and he wanted to relaunch the Marvel universe, and bring in new voices, new talent, new characters, or at least characters that hadn't been utilized in a long time. And he proposed Power Man and Iron Fist. Now, this is a full circle story, because as a child, like I said, I was enamored by Power Man.
Yeah.
Tiara, the big, muscles with the swashbuckler, boots and the, silk yellow shirt, the chain belt, that stuff. And so
like camp, really camp. Yeah.
Oh yeah, very camp. And for me, that was full circle. And I was pretty emotional about it, because it was the thing that kind of helped me to see myself in this world of comics, because, you know, just being honest, it's all predominantly white male characters, especially at that time. And to have that one character, of course, Black Panther was there as well. He predated Luke Cage, Power Man, but you know, you didn't see him because of the mask. So I didn't know as a kid that Black Panther was a black guy. I just thought, called him Black Panther, that was it. But here's a guy that, you know, you see him, and his visuals says all of that. It says I'm a black man. And yeah, so we were teamed up, me and David. We worked on, actually we knew each other before that. He was the writer for this series called Shaft, well, based on the actual novels, not the film. And he did an adaptation of that, and I did the covers for that. So we got acquainted around that time. So when I heard Marvel wanting to bring in David, it was like, oh yes, this guy can absolutely write this style of character, because, you know, so I got super excited when I heard that he was coming on board. And so we just teamed up, and we threw everything we had at that actual series.
But it got cut short, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, considering these days, you know, cut short, what does that really mean? I guess
Sure.
I think a lot of people felt it was short because, fortunately, people were enjoying it.
Yeah.
And Marvel had other intentions. They wanted to, I think the whole corporate side of things started to play a lot more because they had the Netflix show, and the Netflix show didn't recognize them as a team quite yet. And they definitely did not recognize Luke Cage as Power Man. So they wanted to kind of play up on the Luke Cage side of things more. And we pitched them, hey, why don't we kind of kill off Power Man and Iron Fist, which, you know, for me, the sentimental value of that was, it would hurt, but I understood that Luke Cage is a lot more prominent for today's audience. But we pitched an idea about doing Luke Cage and Iron Fist instead of Power Man and Iron Fist. And
Yeah.
you know, it will continue the stories, but just kind of a new volume of it. But they had other plans. And we see, honestly, where they both ended up in the Netflix shows. They kind of were together just for a minute, and then they separated again. So they kind of wanted, I don't know, they wanted to kind of keep their own space.
Yeah. But so you obviously, you were very much part of the creation process of Bitterroot, weren't you, with David and Chuck? Mm-hmm. How early were you in with it? Were you very much part of the idea process?
Oh yeah, from the very beginning. If I could quickly digress, as a matter of fact, you know, when we saw Luke Cage, Power Man, and Iron Fist was going to end, we started thinking about our plans for our next projects. And we started thinking about, would it be possible to do something on the level that we did do with Power Man and Iron Fist? Can we still do that at Marvel? Is there still room or space for us to do those types of stories? We just felt like at the time they were starting to shift away from it. They wanted to go a little more, I don't know, mainstream, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, we had an idea loosely based on the Harlem Renaissance with Power Man and Iron Fist that we wanted to implement into this storyline. Obviously, they didn't go for that. So we kind of put that to the side. Our third partner, Chuck Brown, had an idea about doing something with Harlem Renaissance that kind of loosely is based on kind of like monster hunting during the Harlem Renaissance, which I thought, wow, that's a really cool idea. Here's something that we wanted to kind of explore the Harlem Renaissance anyway. Why don't we just create our own thing? And his initial idea what me and David were trying to do or thinking about doing, it just kind of the stars aligned. As a matter of fact, Chuck is someone that I work with on a few Dark Horse projects, and David and Chuck, they know each other through just being colleagues. So I just basically say, hey, why don't we just come together and see if we can put these ideas together and make a really solid idea or pitch, and possibly go do our own thing. And we felt pretty good about the timing of it, because our contracts or project with Marvel was ending. Marvel wanted us to come on board with some other things, but it was stuff that we just felt like we weren't making the types of career moves that we made with Power Man and Iron Fist. So we just felt like, we would do ourselves a better service to do something that's going to really say something, versus just a job. We felt that way with Power Man and Iron Fist. We felt like we were saying something, and we felt like if we made a decision to just do something to do it, it would take away the leverage that we had and the momentum that we had with our careers. So we took the plunge and we said, we're leaving. We're going to go and try this thing, try our hands at creator owned. And long story short, we pitched it to Eric Stevenson. And before we can even finish the pitch, he was like, yes. We said, Harlem Renaissance, steampunk, monster hunting. And he about lost it. He was like, yes, please.
I bet you put your hand up for it. Amazing. Is there anything, like how you were working together before when you were working at Marvel? Is there something about going creator owned? Whether did you have restrictions before? Have your style, has your collaborative style changed now that you're doing something creator owned?
It definitely has. All before, when you're dealing with Marvel, DC corporate type comics, if you will, when you're dealing with them, you're dealing with the property of a corporation. It's not
somebody else's baby,
right?
Somebody else's baby, isn't it? Yeah,
right. So you can't just throw everything against the wall and see what sticks necessarily. Even though they say that, it's not really true. Yeah. And there's a whole lot of, and because of that, there's a whole lot of channels that you have to navigate through just to get your ideas to the table. So with Bitterroot and Creator On in general, there's really none of that. Yes, we have to have our moments of bringing together our ideas to make sure the continuity is seamless or solid. And I think that is why I do appreciate, as much as it's artistically gratifying to have this freedom to create, there is something to be said about the structure from the corporate side. That's the part that we're this is an ongoing process, learning process of learning how to do that. When you're dealing with something that is yours and you have all this freedom and you feel like you can say whatever, do whatever, but at what cost? So you have to make sure that does it make sense from a structural standpoint, even though it may sound cool, it may sound exciting, but does it truly make sense from the structural standpoint? So we're learning administrative duties. We're learning how to be that. Shelley Bond, if I can bring her up again, thank God for her, because she really helped us. She's helping us understand structure in that sense.
That's great. Yeah, you kind of need to curb your enthusiasm, I guess, on occasion. Yes. So why the Harlem Renaissance? Obviously it works. It works absolutely amazingly well. I was wondering whether you think that setting something historically kind of softens the blow for the reader a little bit, you know, like it's easier to deal with these really hard-hitting issues if it happened a while ago. You know, you're putting it back somewhere else.
Yeah, even though it's kind of like I don't want to butcher the phrase, I'm going to attempt to say it. It's kind of like, what is it, the reality is stranger than fiction. I think that's it, or whatever. When 2016 elections happened, the results of it, it was kind of like this weird, synergetic, perfect storm of despair and inspiration and enthusiasm to say something, to do something. And that's honestly where the spark for this happened. So we knew that the subject of racism was more prevalent than it's been in at least 50 years, at least in this country. And again, there were so many dissenting voices out there. We felt like we needed to not only say something and do something, but also try to get all those voices to kind of, in some way, to try to get them to zero in on, so what are you really saying? What are you really thinking? What are you really feeling? Because sometimes we can say a lot and not say anything at the same time. And that's what we felt like. If we felt like in some small way, if we can bring all these different voices together, people that agree, people that don't agree, if we can somehow bring them together in some sense, that we can all hopefully come away with at least one thing that we can truly understand and see. And that was our hope from the beginning, to try to attempt that. It was kind of lofty, but I think when everything was so heightened, we just felt like we might as well shoot for the moon, because everyone's out here. It's all out there now. It's all the what do you call it? The cover has been completely ripped off, and you see the ugliness that's always been there. It hadn't never really gone away. It's always been here. So hey, why not? We can play this time. We can use the time to our advantage, because it's all relative. You know, it's just that the Harlem Renaissance, part of the reason why we did the Harlem Renaissance was because that was one of the times where for Black people in this country, it was extremely empowering. It was extremely prosperous.
Hot on the heels of an absolutely horrific period in America.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Yeah.
In spite of all of those horrific events that happened just prior to that time, it still ended up prosperous. And so we were like, wow, that in itself is a story. Like, why? How were you're able to, after those horrific events in 1921? And for those who aren't familiar with that time period in history, it was a time period actually we're using in our story as well. So I don't want to necessarily spoil it, but
no spoilers.
No spoilers. So we started to even ask ourselves those questions, like, how could a race of people go from these horrific events and just a few years later hit this prosperity, you know? And honestly, a lot of what took place in that moment still permeates today. It's still prevalent, with the culture and as far as the arts and the things of that nature, all those things derive from that moment. So that's not just Black history and Black culture, that's culture in general. It's like all of it stemmed from that moment. So we were just fascinated by that. So we started playing around with those ideas. And I'm sorry for getting, too long-winded, but
no, please.
Yeah, but long story short, we just thought that, let's just let history write this story. We know that the whole subject of racism is very topical, but it's also very relevant, and so we can do cave times, we can do prehistoric times, and we can still use that that subject. But we just thought that what makes that time period so much more, it drives home this subject, because in spite of all of those things like racism, look at the prosperity of a race of people, in spite of all of those struggles. So we just thought that alone was just fascinating. That we hadn't even gotten to the real core of the story about the family. We just started looking at that time period, and we were like, yeah, we got to. And on top of just being honest, we didn't see a whole lot of things out there about Harlem Renaissance, that time period anyway, which was somewhat tragic, but we also felt, advantageous to, wow, let's be one of the first to do it. I know there's others that have done it, but, let's also capitalize on the fact that it's not a lot of stories out there in this sense.
Of course. I mean, you've given me hope. Maybe after these dark times, maybe we'll have a renaissance. Maybe there'll be so incredible.
And I do believe that. I believe these things aren't in a vacuum. I think it's all, if you look at what's happening, like even what's happening right now with entertainment in general, I think another, and I'll be remiss to not mention this, what the other thing that really catapulted us to just, we got to go for this, was the film Black Panther. When that came out, we were still trying to figure out where we wanted to go with our story and our ideas, and if we wanted to do it at all. And then Black Panther came out, and we got so inspired again. We were like, wow, look at this magnificent piece of work, and look at all the things that it's saying, but yet it's in this fantastical setting to where everybody is able to come on board and not feel guarded, because you got this thing kind of giving you this lens that doesn't cloud your takeaway from it, your outlook on it. And we were like, yeah, we got to do this now, because obviously we're all looking for something to give us inspiration and hope and things of that nature. So yeah, we knew that, yeah, this is, if we don't do this, we would be remiss.
Have you had, talking about current affairs and, various terrible things that are happening at the moment and in recent years, have you had any storylines that have wildly shifted, things that you had planned and then things going on made you go, oh no, we're going to shift that idea, we're going to change that?
And that's a good question, because we've actually talked about that a lot, especially here within the last, well, even this year. This year has given us all kinds of, oh my gosh. But I will say this, the one thing that we were adamant about, even before everything that's taken place here, let's just say in 2020, we were trying to be intentional to give people hope, despite of all of these circumstances that seem to just have been perpetuated over centuries. The theme, the kind of the underlying theme that we wanted to give people is continue to fight in hope. If you hope, you will fight. You'll keep having these aspirations for a better tomorrow. I know that sounds a little hokey, but
no, people need to hear that. Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the I forgot that book that talks about storytelling and how there's really only two themes or something like that. It's and one of those themes is hope. It's like it's always that greater promise, or that greater those aspirations of beyond the horizon. There's but that the journey to that is where the story is unique. Every story will be unique. And we just felt like, if we just keep on that path and understanding that, then I think we can have ourselves something pretty special.
That's really nice. That's that these awful things going on around you, but you just you want to keep people people reading it are gonna you want to be keeping them positive and telling a positive tale.
Yeah, even though there's
Sorry.
Go ahead. Now, I was saying, even though there's obviously in our series, what the subject matter that we're talking about is very volatile, but another aspect that we took was we showed, and again, I get this is not so much it's not a spoiler, but the focus of the story is about this family of monster hunters and how their purpose, how they came about that purpose, how they've gone about that purpose for decades, at least at this point. Without spoiling anything, it goes a little deeper than that time.
Sure.
It goes deeper than the Harlem Renaissance. See Volume 3. We'll get to see some deeper things. But we focused on the family, and honestly, that is the focus. The Harlem Renaissance, the monsters, all that stuff is kind of like secondary stories, even the history. But what we try to give you, which is that first layer, those are the first two layers, but that third layer is the family and what they go through individually, collectively, because of all these events. And I think that's where it all kind of helps. Again, going back to what I said earlier about these dissenting voices, this coming and going. We put them all in this family, all these different voices. And yet they're, and I think we all can identify with that, no matter if you're black, white, or whatever. You got dissenting voices in your family.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with that just in that one context. So
that's it. I mean, the whole story is kind of very grounded in family, with all this wild stuff going on, but it's still about relationships more than anything else. Do you have a favorite? It's got to be Marietta, right? Love her.
Everyone it's like, which one of your children do you love the most? I'll be honest with you. I'm kind of I love them all, but the character that I fight hard to make special is Uncle Enoch.
Oh yeah.
Because I think just from the surface level, he's not the most popular character because aesthetically he's not the most cool looking character, right? But he is arguably, in my sense, he's probably the most important member of the family because of his knowledge of, of course, Ma Etta is the matriarch and what she says goes, but if they need to get somewhere and they need to get something done, for the most part, he's already had his hands in it at some point, or he has some knowledge of it. Yeah, so he's I work hard to try to make him visually appealing, and of course David and Chuck try to write him and make him interesting. I mean, he's got those little imp creatures around him, because that's another cool those things.
That's so cute.
But funny story with that.
But they are good at their jobs.
Yeah.
No spoilers, I'm sorry.
No. I was going to say, funny story with that. We immediately, as we were putting together the story, and we were trying to come up with each character, family member, we talked about Uncle Enoch being this kind of crazy mad scientist, the crazy uncle kind of thing. And we thought, and this is just how I grew up, all my uncles and grandparents, they believed in having a lot of animals for some reason, dogs. And I'm like, you know what? It'd be kind of cool if he had dogs. And then, to David and Chuck's credit, they said, what if it's a dog that's not from this earth? And we were like, now I'm intrigued. And it's cool because he is the linchpin to the greater story. Those imps are, again, not trying to spoil it, but those creatures are a linchpin and a bridge to all this other stuff.
It is just brilliant. I encourage everyone to read it. It's pretty mind-blowing stuff. Do you ever have to, my last question was going to be whether you ever kind of have to censor yourselves, whether you come up with some storylines that are just, pretty heavy or I don't know, but a bit too passionate that you think can't quite go in there. I mean, you're obviously the gentlest soul in the world. Do you ever have to censor yourselves at all? Do you ever come up with ideas and you think, oof, people won't be able to handle that?
I think, this is a conversation I had with, I think, David and Chuck. We were writing issue 10, and I drew it, and they were like, "Yo, this is this is pretty intense." What happens here, and it's like, but I felt like it needed to happen. Even before that, I think, just some of the things we did in issue 1.
Sure.
I think even in issue 2, the visual side of it with the men hanging in the tree. I mean, it's stuff that, so when you say, do you feel like we need to censor ourselves? Like, I don't want to do anything that's unnecessary. That part, yes, I totally agree. I don't believe in drawing anything vulgar or super violent for just to say we can get away with it. If I do it, it's going to have some meaning behind it because it's rooted in truth. So we if anything, that's pretty much the only rule that we have, is just make sure that it's rooted in truth.
Well, I think that's brilliant. I think that's all I've got. I really, really appreciate you talking to me. You were going to show me some pictures.
I'll show some pictures. So
yeah. Just so people can have a look at what it all looks like.
Yeah, I'll show you. We do have Bitterroot Volume 2 coming out here. If everyone's
October 27th, no? Something? October
21st.
21st.
Mm-hmm. Can you guys see that? This is the cover to Roots. I think the international, I don't know if it's the same time, if it's released the same time in Europe as the States. I doubt it, but yes, just check your local comic shop, if you will. I know also COVID is making it very hard to to do a whole lot here.
People
Unfortunately,
find a way. People find a way. Yeah.
But yeah, this is the cover to volume 2.
Fantastic.
And we got the cool little Eisner logo there as well. So
Amazing.
very, very thankful and grateful for all the support and the just the encouraging words from creators and comic readers all over.
I mean, it is really well loved. Congratulations! It's just absolutely wonderful. Do you want to bring yourself back? Have you got anything else that you want to tell people about? Anything upcoming that you are allowed to tell us about?
More Bitter Root.
Yeah.
That'll be early next year. Volume 2 again, out October 21st. Got a really cool idea that we're gonna try to implement with Volume 3. Super excited about that. We're going to a whole nother level with this, and hopefully we'll stick the landing, because I think we're gonna possibly conclude this storyline in the 3rd volume. So that's a bit of a breaking news right there. And but as far as other things, I got a few cool things I'm working on. I can't show the work, but I can tell you that I'm working with Pat Oswald, the actor.
Yeah.
With a DC project.
Amazing. Wow.
Yep.
Congratulations. That's exciting.
Thank you. I'm excited about it as well. Yeah, just doing covers for DC and Marvel. Should I say this?
Yes.
So I'm doing. I will be doing something with Milestone when that launches again. So.
Wow. Okay. Brilliant. Did we get a scoop? Did we get a scoop?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. One last quick question. Where can people find you online?
You can find me Twitter, Instagram, even Facebook, if you so are inclined, at Sanford Greene. So all platforms at Sanford Greene. But I'm mainly on Instagram, so if you want to see, some of my work in terms of process, I do a lot of process videos there, and just some other cool exclusive. I got a few exclusive things that I'll be doing with Bitterroot, some bundles that I'll be doing with the original artwork and the actual issues signed, and sketches and things of that nature. Amazing.
Okay, well, that's brilliant. Thank you so much, Sanford. We can't believe it. It's been so nice talking to you. Congratulations on the Eisner. Congratulations on Bitterroot. Honestly, it is absolutely mind-blowing. Everybody has to read it. And thanks so much to all of you for watching this Thought Bubble Digital Comic Con video. Thanks so much. Bye-bye, Sanford. Take care.